Hello everyone, I hope life has been treating you well. I am Starscream0625, and today we will be taking a look at the Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Deluxe Class Trailbreaker. Trailbreaker is a slight retool of Combiner Wars Off-Road. As you can see, he shares the same basic truck mode. He is a pickup truck, and he maintains Trailbreaker's usual color scheme of black with the yellow, orange, and red stripes along the side, which are very nicely camouflaged and nicely evoke the original figure. He does have painted rims on his wheels, and he rolls quite well. He has a nice metallic blue on his windshield and windows. And as far as his differences from off-road go, he does have his cannon arm exposed on the back of his pickup truck bed, and the back of his arm here is different, and it doesn't have the ridges that are in the rest of the bed. That'll be more evident in robot mode. Here he is next to Ironhide, another retool of off-road. You can see the similarities and differences there. And I think that the color schemes of both go a long way to differentiate themselves from each other and from off-road. Trailbreaker comes with its accessories. First, the obligatory Combiner Wars hand-foot gun. It is identical to the hand-foot guns of all the other uses of this mold. However, when you come down to the underside, the thumb and the fingers are remolded into a claw configuration. The two fingers are painted silver to resemble Trailbreaker's force field generator. And you can, well, before we flip the thumb in and plug it onto Trailbreaker's bed, here it is next to Ironhide's hand-foot gun. You can see Trailbreaker's is cast in black plastic, whereas Ironhide is cast in gray plastic and painted a bit of silver. You can see Ironhide has four fingers and a more rounded thumb, whereas Trailbreaker has two fingers and a more square thumb. And you can fold Trailbreaker's thumb in and use this slot in between his two fingers to peg onto this slot on his bed, like so, for storage. And I think it also ends up mimicking Trailbreaker's original camper attachment that he had on his Generation 1 toy, which is neat. He also comes with an axe, the same axe that all the other iterations of this mold have come with. The blade is painted a nice silver. Here it is next to Ironhide's, which is cast in unpainted gray plastic. And the handle is molded to look like an exhaust vent and can be plugged onto the side of Trailbreaker's vehicle mode, like so. Now we'll get down to Trailbreaker's transformation. To start, we will remove his accessories, his axe, and his hand-foot gun, and flip the thumb out for foot mode later. We will start by taking the hood and bringing it up, like so, on this hinge that's a part of the windshield, and then bringing it, actually, we'll not bring it forward yet, we will leave it back. We will then take these door pieces and bring them out like so, and bring out his arms. Same thing on the other side, bring out the door pieces, and then his arms, like so, which will give us clearance to bring the front parts of his legs down, like so, and then we'll rotate his head around, and then bring it down like so. Now, you can rotate it the other way, but his head will get caught because it's too large to enter the chest cavity from his back. Then you may bring his legs back up against his thighs, close the door pieces and his arms on either side, and then the hood has grooves up by the wheels, and there are two grooves by his windows which will hold the kneecap in place. And then you can take his hand foot gun, the 5mm port, and plug it onto the bottom, like so. And here we have Trailbreaker in his foot mode. He just had the usual articulation. He has a ratchet joint for his knee, and then he also has knee rotation on a ratchet as well, and his foot can swivel like so, and pop off. Speaking of which, we'll get to his arm mode. To begin, we will take the kneecap hood piece and bring it out for clearance. We will then again unpeg his arms and these door pieces from the sides and bring them out and up like so. They'll lock into place. Then the other side, bring his door pieces and his arms out and up like so. Then we will come down here to his legs and fold the fronts out, and then come back here to the bed and unpeg them from the back of the cab like so, and bring them down like so. And there's a tab right there that will peg into the slot right here on his knee, which will keep his legs together. Same thing on the other side. That slot will go into the peg on his knee and attach like so. Now on my Trailbreaker, these pins right here and right here are out a little too far, so that whenever I try to peg his legs together for arm mode or for vehicle mode, they like to push each other apart, which is more evident back here in the cab. You can see there's a bit of a gap. It isn't a huge problem, but it is there, and I think it's just on my figure. It's not a general QC error. You can rotate his waist to be a left or a right arm. We'll do left. And then you want to take his combiner piece. Now you're going to want to bring it up over his back like so. Rotate his head around to eliminate visible head syndrome, and bring it back down like so at a 90-degree angle. Then you're going to bring his arms back like so at a 90-degree angle, and because they are remolded, using these tabs right here, you're able to peg them in, and they no longer soft tab, but they actually peg in and hold nicely. Same thing on the other side. Bring his arm back at a 90-degree angle. Bring the door pieces back down and peg them in like so. Bring the hood back up. Adjust the camera and take his hand foot gun. Now the fingers on mine are very, very tight and do not want to fold out. So what I generally do is peg it back onto the bed and then just, without snapping it off, bring it up and try to manipulate the fingers. There we are, out like so. Put the fingers out, bring the thumb down and around. It could be a left or a right thumb. And peg it in like so. And here we have Trailbreaker in his arm mode. He does have the usual articulation in this mode. He has the ratchet again, so he has ratchet at the shoulder and a ratcheting rotation at the shoulder. He does have a bicep swivel. He does have double jointed elbows at his hips and at his knees, like so. And then he can rotate his fist around, and his thumb can ratchet up and around, and his fingers can fold in and out. As you can see, it is more of a claw looking at it from the front there. So now we'll take Trailbreaker into a robot mode. We can begin by folding the hand foot gun back into foot configuration and setting it off to the side. Then we can come down here, rotate Trailbreaker's legs at the waist, split them, bring his arms back down like so. Same thing the other side, bring his arms down, and then flip the combiner port down into his chest, rotate his head around 180 degrees. And here we have Trailbreaker in his robot mode. So here we have Trailbreaker in his robot mode, and I really think that the off-road mold works well as Trailbreaker. He does have remolded forearms. The one gives him his cannon arm, like so, which is molded nicely on the inside. And then his other arm is molded to resemble his cartoon appearance, like so. And even his fist is remolded to give it more of a square shape. So that's nice. He does have a new head as well. Try to get a close-up on. Focus the camera. So very, very nice. I think it's close, very, very close to Trailbreaker's Generation 1 cartoon appearance. And nice blue on the visor. For his ability, I believe his head's on a ball joint. He can look that much up and that much down. And can do a full 360. His shoulders are on a ball joint. So they can do a full 360. However, these door panels do get in the way. However, they can also rotate around. He has a bicep swivel. And he has 90 degrees of movement there at the elbow. He has 360 degrees of movement at the waist. He has ball jointed hips. He can go that far forward, that far back due to the cab hanging down. He does have a thigh swivel. He has a little under 90 degrees at the knee and nothing at the feet. However, his feet are molded in a sort of a wide stance to simulate ankle joints. He does come with his accessories. Again, the obligatory Combiner Wars hand foot gun, which I believe lends itself more to this mode than anything, as it can be used as a claw to peg into his cannon arm, which again I have to come back here to the cab on his bed and try to pry the fingers out. There we are. And once you get Trailbreaker to stand and the hand foot gun into hand configuration, it can peg into the cannon, which is a 5mm port, like so, which is very neat. Now, I don't think this Hulk hand look works as well on Trailbreaker as it does on Rook, because Rook is very, very thick and bulky, whereas Trailbreaker is rather thin. But you still have the action, and it is pretty neat. And of course, you can hold it as a gun in its other hand, if you so choose, like so. But my favorite use of the hand foot gun in robot mode is to plug it onto his back. Well, when I say plug, I mean I fit it onto his back. It doesn't plug in by any means. It's not official. But I will fold the thumb down. I will come back here to his backpack and then stick the thumb down into his back cavity, like so. Fold it up again to enclose the hand foot gun in the chest cavity, and it sort of gives Trailbreaker his force field generator that was over his head in the original cartoon and on the original toy. He does have the cannons up above his head though, which is not accurate, but I think it's better than keeping the hand foot gun off to the side, and I think it makes good use of the remolding that they did to the fingers. Then he does again have his axe, which unfortunately cannot plug into his cannon arm, which is unfortunate. I wish it could, but it can plug onto his hand, or plug into his hand rather, like so. So here is Trailbreaker next to Ironhide again. You can see how they go together. And I do think that the overall color placement on these guys lends itself well to making them look like completely different figures. And I really had no problems with them being from the same base mold. And then here he is next to Follow Cybertron Starscream. And you can see at the head, Trailbreaker is a little bit taller, which is nice. Overall, I think Trailbreaker is pretty great. I was never able to get a hold of the Thrilling 30 Deluxe Class Trailbreaker, or Trail Cutter, based on the IDW Comics design. So this figure will be my classic Trailbreaker. And overall, I'm really satisfied with him. Across the remolded arms, head, and the hand-foot gun, which can double as his force field generator, I really think he works to give us a good representation of cartoon Trailbreaker, whereas the Thrilling 30 Trailbreaker was closer to the original toy. This happens to be my favorite Combiner Wars Deluxe Class limb mold, and it's really nice to see it use as Trailbreaker, and I really think it works. This has been Starscream 065. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and do take care.